Well, this doesn't go with the video, but I dropped my camera and I have to get a new one because I broke the bottom out of it. I can still film with it, but I got no way of holding the camera up because the whole bottom is broken off of it. So I threw it in the waterproof case, and you can't hear me. So all you can see is my gums flapping, and that's it. So what I'm talking about here today is I've got to string up these beans, and I'm going to light the little Jøtul uh, heater there to see if I can get some temperature in there because it is a tad cool today. And it's only 15 degrees Celsius outside. So what you see me doing here is getting all the flammables away from the little fireplace so that I've already melted that cooler that's on the left because I had it too close. And I guess I didn't learn my lesson then. So anyway, I'm just those two containers there to the left of the fireplace are full of newspapers. We sure wouldn't want that to go up. And that's a big bag of dog food here that I gotta get it out of the way. We went and bought two of them the other day, and I found my wife has found the old bungee cord. I'll just check it here to make sure it's still stretchy. That came off my mower. I used that to hold the flap up on the side so it stays out of the bush. What happens is when I'm driving along, a lot of times it'll get caught. And I don't want to rip it off, so I just pull it up. Now, we'll get the other newspapers out of the way right now. Yeah, I got to check to make sure what's in there. I thought there might have been wood. And where are we going to stick them? Oh, yeah, we're going over here now. Drop them off. So the front of the fireplace is pretty well cleaned up. And I'll probably pick the microphone up and move you to a better location so you can see me what I'm doing and you'll be able to watch the fire at the same time. Now, I wonder where he went. That's me. So, I've been pretty rough on things in the last couple of days, last week or two. The chainsaw, that was an expensive fix. That was 150 bucks. And this will cost 200 bucks to replace this. Oh, those there are things we put on the peonies to hold them up and I'm just trying to find a place to stick them. I got another place over at the behind the workbench there. Temporary permanent place. It doesn't take me too much longer and I can get lighting the fire here. Now I don't do it the same way everybody else does. Doesn't matter how you light it as long as it gets lit. I struggled a little bit this time because I wasn't used to well, I haven't lit it for 6 months, maybe even longer. Now, how I do mine, it doesn't necessarily mean it's wrong. It doesn't mean it's right. It's just how I do it. And it works. So what I do when I come back, I'll explain it as we're going along so I can basically keep up with the video at the same time. Okay, here he comes. Now, there we go. We'll put you on top of the knees. Well, we'll put you on the bench for now. So you got a good bird's eye view of what's going on there. Now, normally what I do is I'll stick two of the biggest pieces of wood that I got that's got one good flat surface on it after it gets into the fire pit. And this wood is well seasoned. It's been drying for at least a year, if not two. So what I'll do is I'll pick two off the pile, or one pile, and you'll see that after they get in there, I suppose it's hard to see because it's black, I try to make a flat surface on the bottom. And as I recall, although I didn't quite do it this way this time, I put another large piece on the left and another large piece on the right, and I leave that piece in the middle for, or the space in the middle for piling up all the kindling on top of it. So here we go, one for the right side. Then what I used to do is I used to take the kindling and I'll pile the kindling up on top of what I've already got. And today I didn't quite use the smallest pieces that I had. I just used a piece of 2x8 that I just whacked up on the little chopping block I got in the garage for this purpose. After I get a good pile of kindling in there, and I didn't do it this time, I'll take a bunch of newspapers, and normally I'd like to roll them up, and then I'll tie them into like a donut and stuff them in there. And I use 5 of them. Seems to be the magic number. They don't seem to light, or the fire doesn't seem to light all that good if you just kind of make balls out of them, and that's what I did this time. When you roll them up, I think it increases the slows down the burn time and allows the newspaper to get hotter that way. There you can see a bunch of kindling that from the block that I'm chopping laying down onto the floor there. And it just pops off, whack, 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 whack. That's that fast. You got to watch your fingers because this axe will take it off. It's pretty sharp. So now we're filling it up. But sometimes I make feather sticks, which is a knife that with the knife you kind of cut on it and make all these curls. That really helps it light fast too. And I didn't want to throw a bunch of kindling in there for some reason. I got a ton of it. I could have used a lot more. And then I take the newspaper and I stuff it in at the top. So hopefully I hurry up here and get back. I don't know where I went. I suppose it's kind of good that I watched my own videos to watch me putting stuff in or doing stuff because I disappear quite a bit and I don't always drag you along. So there's a couple of newspapers in there. And I actually do remember I rolled one up the way I showed you or told you. And it's to get you to see what I mean by rolling it up and making a donut. Of course, I don't realize that the cameras, I've always seemed to have problems with the camera. Uh, I'm never in the frame. So there we go. That's 3. And I'll use up another bunch. We've got an unlimited supply of newspapers coming from my mother-in-law. I don't bother buying the newspapers here in New Brunswick because unless the newspaper is imported, that usually it comes a day late. The newspapers are all known by the Irving family, as is the, excuse me for a sec, I got to sneeze. That's you. Okay, this is best it's going to get. It's coming though. Oh, here it comes. Excuse me. I don't know where I went this time. Maybe my wife's talking to me. So here I am. Oh, I ran into the house to get the glass cleaner because I didn't want to frick around trying to clean the glass. I don't bother with the cleaning the glass out here because you're not usually sitting there watching the fire. And it is kind of a hokey little wood stove. I did cook on it once. Doesn't look that clear. And I can hear the glass rattling around in there. So the glass isn't put into the front door was all that well. And the handle that opens and closes it's kind of hokey pokey too. The glass cleaner works pretty good. We'll chuck that in there too. I'm not sure what it's made out of. But in the past, I've used the ash at the bottom of the stove and I mix it with a little bit of water, and that works on a piece of paper towel or a newspaper to clean the window. So I got another couple of pieces of paper, and hopefully you can see me roll one up. All right. I guess not. Here we go. Roll it up. Make a knot. And that's it. Grab the matches. Normally it takes me one match to get it lit, but I kind of floundered around here a bit, and it didn't go off on the first light. I should have lit that bottom one burnt and got it burning upwards first. Because usually that's all it takes. Open the draft all the way and keep the door cracked open. But the newspaper's been sitting in the garage for quite some time, and it gets damp. It's hard to keep the garage from getting too much moisture in it. And I didn't get a good light on it this time either. And I think I have to use the match once more. So, well, maybe not. Oh, there it goes. It just died off. Oh. Now, I've had this happen to me a couple of times. I lit the stove and it started to smoke like crazy out the front of it. All you have to do when that happens is open up the door. That equalizes the pressure from the inside of the garage to the outside, and it causes the draft to be reestablished to go up. There was quite a bit of smoke come flying through there, out the front door there, but not this time. And basically, I'm talking about the same old thing as I always talk. Uh, and I'm going to have to try to duplicate what I said earlier so that you get the gist of everything here. And I don't know if I can remember what I said. I'll do my best. So this time it's lit. This is the third time you're lucky, right? And what we're doing today's mission is to string the beans all up. So I go get a needle and I get some thread from my wife. And the thread that I use is wax dental floss. It works the best. And it doesn't matter, but it is minted. But the beans won't know the difference. So now we got the fire going, and I got to get myself organized here and ready so we can start stringing some beans together. What we're trying to do is whatever we can grow in the garden, we can get the seeds from it, and from that we can start growing again the next year using the same seeds. Eventually, we won't have to buy any seeds because we'll just grow what we can replace with our own seeds. And this year we're going to have sunflowers, we're going to have pole beans, plus green and yellow bush beans. We had a carrot that was going to seed, but I didn't realize what it was. So we whacked that down and fed it to the dogs. And we're going to be growing all our own potatoes again. So it doesn't look like it's going to light, but it does.
You hear that?
The kindling, what you can't hear is that the wood is starting to snap, crackle, and pop. So that means that the sap inside there is starting to ignite, and it'll just get hotter and hotter. I did manage to get the temperature in the garage up to about 75 degrees. And as you can see here, it's only 55, so I managed to get it up 20 degrees before I went up to get the mail. Then I opened up the garage door. Now, what happens here is that once I get that heat going in there, the walls retain the heat because they're all insulated, and we got I think, R24 doors or R21 doors, I can't remember, the best doors that we could for insulation to try to get as much heat uh, or where we can retain as much heat as possible inside the garage. But when the temperature dips below 32 degrees Fahrenheit, say uh, 10 degrees Fahrenheit or minus 10 Celsius, this little heater can't do the trick. So the next thing we're going to try is to fix the door, because you can see quite a bit of light by the door. And I think as the room heats up, the heat goes up into the loft, up the stairway. So I might have to come up with a way to block that heat off in there. And we're going to get the door fixed so that we don't see no light coming through it ever again. So the fire's going really good now. And I'm going to have to move the camera here pretty soon so that you can see what I'm doing with the needle and the dental floss. I think that's what I've gone for now. The dental floss works the best because it's pretty strong. if you use regular thread, it may work, but if you're putting it through a bean that's partly wet, it might cause the thread to break and then the beans will fall off the wall. I'm going to be putting the beans on the wall above where the pile of wood is on the side of the fireplace, and then they will dry out over the next month or two, and I'll open up the pods, and then we'll use those seeds, and we'll see if they'll germinate. And then, yahoo, they did last year, but we lost this. We lost most of the seeds. So, come on here, let's get going. It doesn't take, didn't actually, it didn't take me very long to do it. Maybe about 15, 20 minutes. And I had those beans all strung up that way. And as we're gardening over the next few years here, while we still can, my goal is to get all the seeds from the garden, whether they're and some of the other seeds we had that we used was from the squashes that we bought for the dogs. What we did was we just saved the seeds, and we just threw them in the ground, and Lord behold, they grew. Now you'll see that fire is burning pretty good, and shortly the fan will start to spin and try to move a little bit of air around. I think if I had another fan or two on top of the little fireplace, it would move a lot more air, and it would get it a lot warmer in there. But it did go up 20 degrees in the space of over an hour. Now, if I kept that fire going all the time, uh, the walls would retain all that heat, and I probably wouldn't have to use as much wood. But as you can see, all that wood that's stacked right there in those two boxes is wood that is shorter, and it's been split pretty small because that's the only wood that'll fit in that little fireplace. Now, we did have a power outage one time, and what we did was the dogs are in. Starting to climb. Show you that. I got the temperature on there. Oh, here's another lesson, life lesson that I've had. And I'm not going to touch this to see if this thing will I put a whole bunch of these small squares of plywood that I had left over from all the construction in the house. And there, the fire starts to go. And I didn't want to throw any scraps out. I thought that, geez, I'll just burn it. Well, that wasn't a very good idea. What happened was is that it got so hot in there that the temperature gauge on the flue wrapped all the way around to the other side. I asked about it, and they said, no, you don't put it in there because the glue that they use inside the plywood to hold the different sheets together is causes the temperature to go up too high. Now, I just showed you the needle. We got a real heavy duty needle, and I think I gave it back to my wife. And above, you see that little coat rack? That's where I hang the beans after I'm all said and done. So it was a year since I did this the last time, so it's kind of like a learning curve for me. What I'll do is I'll sit down here where that orange bucket is, and I'll start stringing the two different kinds of beans we got onto the dental floss. The first ones I'm going to do are the pole beans that we pulled off of the garden fence. because it grows up to the top. I ordered a new one. I tested this. This is why I'm talking on the video now, to cover on the video so that I can try to do a voiceover because you can't hear nothing. All right. So you can see the fan starting to spin there on the fireplace, and I don't know where I went. I'm still waiting for the dental floss, I guess. Here we are. It's kind of a wet, miserable day. So in the blue bucket, we got pole beans. And in the bag, we got bush beans. I'll get it. Just a second here. Hang on. I'll be right back. The fire, the bucket, where I'm going to sit, and where is the stuff? So, my great aunt Georgie Lincoln, her husband Fred, and their son Wallace had a farm. All right. In Sussex. There we go. So after fumbling around with the knot and that, it takes time. You figure these things out on the fly. At least that's by nature. I'm pretty good when I come to a scene of a car accident. I seem to instinct kicks in, and I know exactly what to do to help people or whatever the case is to get things going and under control. No need to panic. Just got to get things done. So here we go. We got the needle in there pretty soon. And one of the problems I did is I didn't make it long enough to begin with. It should be about, well, what's a meter of dental floss cost? Not very much. And that gives you enough dental floss to be able to do all the beans. And you don't need to tie a knot onto the end of them. What you do is you take one of the beans, you string it through, with the needle, pull it partly through, stick the needle in your pant leg so you don't lose it, and you take the string went through the bean, and you tie a knot on the bean with it at the end. Because if not, it's just going to pull through, and you'll be right back to where you started from. Or you could tie it half loops over top of a stem if there's one. And in this case, I just tied it to a knot onto the bean itself. Now, let's see here. We're about halfway through the video. Okay, come on, Bob, let's go. Now, because they're in the bucket and the way it was sitting over on the side there, hanging in the air, it kept pulling itself out of the needle on me. I could have tied the end of the thread to the eye of the needle. See, there's I lost it the first time. Now I got to put the frickin' thing back together. But I get it. So if you had a meter long thread, and if you kept, say, 50 centimeters out and not in, you'd less likely lose the needle on the thread all the time. So here we go. We got some action going now. And we lost it again. And the other thing I figured out was in when I did the next batch is I put the bucket on my between my knees and held it so that the weight of the beans was not heavily onto the string itself. And you see the fire's going pretty good and the fan's going spinning pretty good. But the problem is the doesn't seem to have the right pitch on the blades. I don't want to get into bending them, but it doesn't seem to throw. You don't feel a breeze in front of the fan there. It dies off pretty fast. I do have a shop heater uh, on the left-hand side of where I'm sitting that points towards the garage door. What do you want, Storm? You got a big goober across your nose. Oh, come. All right. So you can see it's starting to go on there pretty good now. Yes, I've received a bollocking for having to buy a camera. But we've got two now. We can put one, I can leave it in the waterproof case, and I could set that up in one place. And then I got the other one I can use for the narration or talking. And we might be able to upgrade my videos a little better. I'm not really sure, but we'll try. We'll try to figure it out for you. So as you can see, there's starting to get quite a few of those beans on there. Oh, and what I was talking about, now that'll help fill in a little bit of time, is when I was a kid, a boy of, I think I was about 5 years old. No, I was 10. When we came back from Germany, my father was in the military. We stayed at in a city called Zweibrücken at the Air Force Base, 3 fighter wing. That we come back to the farm, and we come back around my birthday, which was in the beginning of April. And I went into the chicken coop onto the farm in Salisbury, New Brunswick. And what happened was, is I broke through the crust in the chicken coop because it was in there getting eggs. I thought that was really the coolest thing. And wouldn't you know it, I slipped and I broke through the crust. And let's just say that the manure in there was about 2 feet thick, and the underneath the crust on top was nothing but the slimy stuff, and I got coated in it. Meanwhile, I remember walking into the house out of the woodshed from where all this was, and I can remember my mom and my old aunt Georgie just screaming there to get out of the house and get my clothes off. I didn't quite understand what was all going on, but I can laugh about it now. Now, I've hung the bush beans up, or the pole beans up on the stake there, and now we'll do it again. I'm explaining to use dental floss. Now I finally got out a long enough one, and then I realized too that these beans, when I strung them up before, they were dry. These ones are wet and they're a lot heavier. All right. So anyway, back at the farm, that was a really cool place to be. They had a my Aunt Georgie and my Uncle Fred and Wallace were the three key people of the old farm there that I remember. And my Uncle Hintz, he had a farm farther down the road. Now, these are cousins of my father's, I believe, the Lehmans were. And I'm not really sure how the story all goes with that, but I guess we can't ask my parents now because they both passed away. Anyway, the they used to take my Aunt Georgie do this a similar thing to what I'm doing, except each bean was on a string, so it was kind of like Christmas lights. So what happened is she'd put it in behind the wood stove, similar to what I'm kind of doing, and she'd dry the beans off that way. And my old Aunt Georgie, she must have been in her late 80s. She's pretty old, and say with my Uncle Fred, they would dry all these beans up on the back of the wood stove. And they didn't have a an electric or a gas stove. They just had a wood stove, and it heated their water, and that's how you had to go and get a big pitcher of water, and then you go back up to your room and you'd wash standing there. It was an awkward thing back then. And then the only bathroom they had was an outhouse outside of the house. That was freaking cold and terrible and raining and whatnot. Or you could use the chamber pot up in the bedroom. That didn't go good with me either, walking around the house with your excrement, excrement, and you're kind of prone to falling down at times. So I didn't want to take the chance of get myself into trouble over that. Anyway, my great aunt used to make these beans, a crock of beans on the wood stove. That would be brown beans with molasses and brown sugar in them. They were to die for. They were really good. But you get an awful lot of flatulence from eating them. And my aunt, she used to get quite a kick out of that. She'd say, I forgot to take the snappers off when I took them out of the pods. And she'd giggle. Because everybody in the house whoever ate those beans, they'd be all farting away. At the same time, it seemed to hit everybody. It was pretty comical, actually, when I was a kid. And she'd make pies there and everything else. But she would get up at 3 o'clock in the morning and start cooking. The men would get down to the kitchen table by 6. And as soon as the last one showed up, she started taking things off the table. There would be a stack of pancakes, oh, a good foot high, maybe a half a dozen steaks. Sometimes there was chickens, sometimes there was salmon, maybe. There was a lot of food to eat, and you couldn't eat it all for breakfast. And she was taking it off the table. You had to be quick. Uh, if you wanted extra, you had to take it right at the very beginning. And that's because she had turned all that into our lunch, because we'd be gone about 6:30 out to the woods or out onto the fields or whatever we were doing, or milking cows. And she'd have your lunch ready by the time you left. Now, I don't know if she went to sleep after we left or not, but we didn't see her until we come back in the afternoon around 4 or 5 o'clock. Now, I used to get a sizable lunch because I couldn't eat breakfast for some reason. I'm not a great one for breakfast, never have been, but she would put in quite a bit, and I would eat it. And what I learned quickly was is that when you come home for supper, there was no real supper. Might have been she might have baked some brownies or maybe made a cake, and we used to sit around watch the evening news. I think it was on at 6 o'clock, and she'd head off to bed. Don't bark. You hear somebody? Storm, come here. Hey, come here, Storm. And she'd head off to bed about 8 o'clock just to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning again and have all the food ready for everybody. And it was a great place to spend as a kid. They had an old horse there, and they used to let me ride it to the woods. I think the horse was pretty smart, actually. It was a draft horse. It was white with black flecks all over it, as I recall, and it was huge. Uh, I'd get on it and I'd spread my legs over the back of it and hang on to his mane, and I'd say, "Giddy up," and the horse would start walking off, and then I'd tell it, "Go right," and you turn right, turn left, stop, and back up on command. And we used him to skid these big logs out of the woods. Some of these logs were, I think they were in 16-foot lengths. I can't recall to fit on the back of a wagon. The horse would pull it out, he'd with his harness, sometimes two or three of them, and my uncle had it in such a way that as he was going by the wagon, he would roll the log onto the wagon or to the ramp, and as the horse went by, it would pull it up on top of the wagon. After we got about 5 logs, which took a good chunk of daytime, we would head home, say, and it took about an hour, so we'd leave about 4:30 and head home. Also, I was just showing you there on my hands, I got these gloves that we got from LL Bean. They're like a welder's glove, but they're great for the fire pit. You can stick your hand right in there with that fire raging. They don't catch fire, and you don't feel no heat. They're pretty good. I've got a pair like that inside the house too that are longer to protect your arm up to your elbow pretty well. So now we're on the last of the beans here. And I'm not doing too bad as far as remembering most of what I said in the video to begin with. Unfortunately, I dropped my camera and I broke all the bottom out of it. And I'm going to try to glue it back together, the little pieces, but I'm pretty sure I'm not going to have much in the way of success. I will contact the company to see if I could ship this one back to them, but I'm not too sure if that's going to work or not. It'd be easier for them to ship me one and give me and I'll maybe look at a video to see how I could get the parts out of it and put it into the new one. But I probably won't be able to do it. I'll find out when I get the new one. It should be here in a few days, so you'll probably have to put up with some of these voiceovers. I can't take the camera and the the mount where you put it onto the tripod and that's what broke right outside of it. And I got about 4 pieces of the thing to see if I can try to fix it with crazy glue, but you know how that's going to go. So doing the beans this way doesn't take very long, as you can see. The whole video here is about 50 minutes, I think. or so, or an hour. And I've been puttering around doing other things at the same time. But another thing that we found is if you put the beans when you go to store them, you put them in a dish of water or a cup of water. The good beans that are going to germinate will sink to the bottom, and the ones that aren't going to grow will float to the top. So you could separate your seeds that way. Don't quote me on that. I might have that backwards, but I think I'm pretty sure that's what we did last year when we tried this experiment. And we're going to have to take the squash out of the garden because that kind of overtook the garden. I bet you took a good close to a third of the garden space. And I don't think any of the animals go after it because they would have gone after my wife's pumpkins in her patch that's outside of the garden. They didn't bother them. And there's the odd thing was chewing on a bit of potatoes, but there were so many potatoes out there that there was no way that they were going to dig them all up. There was just a few spots that we didn't quite get right. And I'm kind of glad things went the way they went. Um, we've got quite a few potatoes, and hopefully the potatoes will store for a good chunk of the winter here, and we can grow potatoes again, like we did this year, because it was awesome. Most of the potatoes were, I would say, bigger than a softball, way bigger than most baseballs anyway. And the Kennebec seems to have the nicest texture to them. And the Pontiac, which is the red potatoes that I'm struggling to get the last of them in, they have a thicker skin on them. So that when you make a baked potato, you almost need an axe to bust through the outside of the skin on them. I see the sun starting to try to come out. And we're expecting rain tomorrow. So, and I hope, I truly do hope, that sitting here trying to record the voiceover on this video works. I have no idea if it's loud enough, if it's too loud, until I'm finished here. So, oh, I see something I gotta fix for my wife. If you look at the top right-hand corner of the screen, you'll see there's this thing up there that's on an angle. She says that drives her nuts. Now you realize, of course, if I go out there after the video here and I fix that, she'll automatically find something new for me to deal with. But I'll fix that. And I think if I get the last of the potatoes out of the garden, I might go up there with the mower once, throw all the potato uh, stems out that died off, and the way I cut with the mower is I lift the side up so it's like an ordinary lawnmower, like a side shoot, and I'll just drive over all of that, mulch it all up, and blow all the debris back into the garden. Okay, so now I'm pretty well done here stringing this bunch of beans up. And, and I'll tie a knot on this one, and I made a loop on the other one. But what I found was is that it was too short, so that when I put it up on the pegs on the coat rack that's there, the it fell off. But this works. This is a simple thing to do, and uh, if you kept them on the vine themselves, then you could string the whole vine up. But the vine wraps itself around the fence. It's really hard to get it off until in the spring when it's all dry and brittle. Then I break it all off of there. Another thing that we might not grow next year, or at least I'm thinking of not growing, is corn. I will have to trap the varmints that are getting climbing over the fence. It's not the deer getting over in there. It's the I'm pretty sure it's the raccoons. And I did see a skunk going by here a week or so ago in the dark underneath the street light we have. So I'll have to catch all of them and dispose of them, either let them go or there'll be a sad demise, I guess is the term, and have to get rid of them. Like Chucky the Beaver or Bucky. So we're getting close to the end of the video here. And the needle thing's working a lot better than it was. And the bucket with between my legs is taking the weight of hanging onto it with my left hand. That's how come I was losing the thread through the needle all the time. And you could see the fires going really good, and I could see from the video the temperature gauge on the flue is around 300 degrees, so it's throwing out quite a bit of heat. I made a second video just after this one, and I probably won't bother doing a voiceover with it. I did go for a walk up to the mailbox and try talking closer to the camera in itself, but it didn't work. Right now it's about 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Well, I'm just about done with the video. And I'm hoping that the weather will be an improvement for tomorrow, but I don't think so. So it'll be Sunday, and I'll be out there getting the last of potatoes. This is okay because I'm kind of hurting from yesterday lifting up that salt block, that great big freaking stump that I had to put in the back of the Jeep, and lugging all those 7 pails of potatoes down into the basement. We do have a good supply of potatoes. I don't know how long that'll last. And it'll give us a good idea, excuse me, how many potatoes we need to get through the winter, and whether how we storing them, whether that'll store good down there or not. I might go down there later and go through them and see if there's any ones that have been damaged and pull them out so that they don't rot and spoil the rest of them. And I think we're going to, instead of buying sweet potatoes now for the dogs, we're going to just give them regular garden potatoes and mix that in as well. So there we go. That's a healthy looking string of beans. And there's probably over 100 plants in there once I get the beans out of there, and I'll do that in the garage later. Now, I didn't have it strung up high enough, so I had to come up with a way of pulling it up a little higher. I don't want the mice to get into them. There, that's not too bad. Okay, what are we doing? And let's go for a ride. Oh, temperature check. I think it says 65, but I can't see the glare. That doesn't matter. It's not 65 now. Then what I did is I put the couple of more pieces of wood into the fireplace. And then I come in here and I started processing this video. And then I went out and made another video. I sharpened up my little saw that I got fixed. And that'd be that. So now I'm showing you a bean that I picked up that fell out of the pods that was in the bucket. And some of them are hard and some of them are soft. The soft ones will just rot if you don't get them dry. That's why you try to dry them in the pods. And then you can take the best seeds, the bigger, harder looking ones, and you can germinate them. I also seen you could winter green peppers over the winter in the house. The plant, you just dig it out of the garden, stick it in a pot, and put it in a sunny place in the window, and you can retransplant it back into the garden next year. And I don't think we're going to have green peppers either next year. We're going to have more turnip, more carrots, less um, tomatoes. I'm not a big fan of tomatoes either, but I don't mind them if they're stewed in chili, or I like cooked ones, and ketchup. I'm not too much for the fresh ones. So we're quickly getting to the end of the video, and I hope all this chatting that I've done today isn't in vain. Now, those two buckets to the left of the fireplace, that's how I get the ashes out of the house, and I put them into those buckets, and I let them sit in the garage by where the fireplace is. There's no combustibles near them. And when I've got to fill the buckets again, I'll take that and I'll just go dump it out in the garden. And I think this year what I'll do is I'll start dumping it out in the potato garden, because after the snow comes, it's really hard to get the fence open to the garden. So next year I'm kind of excited actually to get the rototiller out there, get everything all sorted out, and now I know I could probably pull the corn stalks and a lot of the other leafy material, put it over by the garden, and maybe I'll mow that into the garden as well. And next year we'll have our wild blueberry, or not, cultivated blueberries that we planted up by the blackberries. We've got that's our little